also what happened to me was that I wasn't taken seriously because I was seen kind of as a secretary. So like you just put some meetings there and you put this ticket in Jira and you move this ticket in Jira from that to that, and that got me very frustrated, to be honest. It's not the work I want to do, and I currently refuse to do that. So I think that these are again red flags that happen more often than not.
To follow up on that, and this is something that I've been, and I think both of us, me and Andre, have been experimenting with. And I'm curious, you may not have any kind of tangency with AI or any of these new technologies, but using AI to self coach or self mentor, we've used that in almost like as an experiment, and for very similar reasons for what you just mentioned, in terms of most people prefer remotely because of the convenience of time and the convenience of having it, I guess, available to you when and where you need it, rather than having a fixed time, fixed location types of meetings. Do you think technology, the way that it evolves, is it making this, I guess, mentoring easier or a little bit harder since there's more things to take into account?
I don't know how it will evolve, of course, but
Yeah.
they are starting to be some AI um, things integrated in mentoring. Like there is a program that tries to build like a skeleton program, mentoring program. I don't know how it works, but for me personally, I and it,
Well, just asking, have you used it? Have you used any type of AI for mentoring, for coaching, for anything, any
Yeah,
type
of
of development?
course. Of course. I think like it helps you be creative, like with your questions and maybe finding some solutions, like I don't know, some because I mentioned the visualization exercise. You can ask ChatGPT that, hey, can you give me some examples so I can use them in my coaching sessions or mentoring sessions? So I think it's a good pool of information, but if you know to filter it. So it's helpful, but it also can go very wrong. I think that with mentorship, the, i- the idea is that the mentor is there to show you empathy, to show you support, which gets lost in AI, or at least the AI we have available right now.
Yeah.
I think maybe I want to complete this. What I would also say is that it depends on your growth level or maturity level whenever you look at mentorship. And for beginners, most likely you want to have a real person as a mentor that can guide you, that has been through all of those obstacles that you may encounter. And I think the more you're kind of aware of your situation and the more obstacles you faced and the better you are in your profession, I think using tools like ChatGPT, like we tried to use some of the tools. We've got some episodes even. We created our own AI assistant for various things, even like ask them interview questions, how to prepare, what to know, what to learn. I think these ones are good if you know how to differentiate the answers. Like if that's a valid answer, if that's a good answer, or perhaps let me dig a bit deeper and let me rephrase my question. So there's a fine line between mentoring yourself through AI and actually having a mentor. So that's just like a small thing that I wanted to add on to what Karla just said.
Yes, and also like for example, I have friends that do mentoring on technical part, so as a developer maybe, and I think that we have so many resources online regarding learning how to code, but at the same time, like how do you know as a new person in the field maybe what code coding language to pick up first? How do you know what's next? So like I think that this mentorship on technical side are also very important. Like a person can tell you where to start, like maybe with algorithms and then with other languages. Like there is more to
Yeah.
learning than asking an AI program what to learn. And in this era, like we have access to any information we want. So I think it's also a problem that we have so much access and so much information, because as you said, we don't really know what's of value and what not. So I think that having a mentor, it's maybe a confirmation that what you are trying to learn, it's okay, and like it will actually help you on the path you are choosing.
Yeah. And you mentioned just before about a mentor would, a human mentor would offer that empathy and that patience. It comes down to kind of the, I guess, the psychological safety of the situation, in terms of an AI is a tool that you use basically to sharpen skills that you should already have. It's quite hard to learn new skills from scratch unless you need some base on there. But in terms of that, how, I guess, how do you approach that level of psychological safety in your, I guess, in your mentor mentee relationships?
So along the way, along the years, I learned some stuff, and now I think that um, I'm trying to use a similar technique that now I found it works. So, for example, in the first sessions, I try to find out what they want, like in their own words. Then why they want that. This is very important, because sometimes people think that doing a certain role it's very easy, but they don't have the full picture.
Yeah.
And after they know more about it, they realize that that's not for them. And I can give some examples here if you want. And also, it's very important to see if there is a match. So, like I put some questions based on intuition and the vibe I get from the person, and I leave the floor open for questions for me, because as you asked me before about the mentee being the ideal mentee, there's also the other part, like maybe I'm not the right mentor for you, and
Yeah.
that's fine. I mean, it should be a true relationship in which we both feel safe, and we feel like it's a good relationship and a productive one, and a relationship in which the mentee can reach their goal, whatever that is. And also in the first session, I'm trying to find out more about the ways of working, the preferred ways of working. Some people are visual, and then I need to think about preparing some stuff for these people, maybe a Miro board, maybe something else. Other people like to work spontaneously. Other people are sending me questions before. So I try to find out what type of person I'm working with first, so I know as well how to prepare for our sessions, because sometimes it requires some preparation. And other admin information I think are also important. This can be the frequency of meeting, the platform. Some people prefer Zoom, others prefer Google Meet, or it depends very much on the people. Some people prefer having like a document in which we summarize the session, put some action items, like in Scrum, like in the retrospective. Others are having other approaches. So this is things that I want to clarify in the first session usually.
No, fair enough. And how in kind of your experience, or in your case, on average, how long does a one of these mentorships lasts? With I know it's probably not a set date, unless I don't know. You actually shouldn't jump to conclusions. Do you have a set date, or how long approximately does this mentorship program or relationship last?
It depends.
Yeah.
And for example, in WeMentoring, like they started with the 6 month program, which was a bit too much. And then we started to make it shorter, and now we are doing it for 4 months. So it's more, I don't know, it seems like it works better for everyone. And we recommend people meeting every 2 weeks, but some people meet less or more often. It depends on them. Um, in my uh, professional life, in which I'm not a mentor in an organized program, I have people that I'm working with for 1 year plus.
Right.
So I think it depends, and each program has its own purpose, let's say. So then it's important, like if you are going into an organized program, to see what it is and if it's okay for you as either a mentee or a mentor. And if not, you can reach out to people independently and do your own mentorship program.
Uh, Fair enough. Do you mind if I ask? Did you ever have a mentor of your own?
Of course,
Yeah.
yes, that's a good question. And uh, I I also want to say that even if I'm a mentor in a lot of contexts, I feel like I learned a lot, and I continually learn a lot. And I think that's very important for a mentor, because a mentor doesn't know everything. It has the
Yeah.
experience, but sometimes he or she will not have the answer you're looking for, and that's okay. Like, for example, when I get a tricky question and I don't know the answer, I tell the person, hey, I don't know, but I will try to find the answer by the next session. And I think that's a good approach,
Yeah.
because we are all humans. We all have, maybe a bad day, maybe something else, but it's important to be willing to help your mentee. And I don't remember the initial question because I got into this mentor learning stuff. So,
Your experience with mentors, like how did you start with mentors, and maybe how many mentors did you have throughout your career?
okay. Yeah. So, like when I did the transition from technical to agile professional, I was feeling super, super lonely, to be honest, because I felt like I don't have the support in the company I was working with then. And it was very bad. I mean, it's like it was the feeling I told you that my mentees have at the beginning, or the people that approach me, like the women that are afraid, or I don't know, they have this, I don't know. And actually, then I started to go at Women in Tech Cluj events, like a lot of them. Like they have monthly events. So back then, I just started going to them. And there I met like a lot of people. And at some point, I met someone that was an agile professional, and we became friends. And I was like, hey, can you help me? And then it was an informal way of getting mentored. And we are still friends. So we are still, asking each other now for advices, because my career took a different path than hers. So now I feel like, it's not me being a mentee and her being a mentor. It's like more we are mentoring each other. And,
Yeah.
the balance has. And after that, like, I also, before joining the we mentoring program as a coordinator, I was a mentee. Like, I was um I wanted to learn about personal branding. So back then I just started on my own, or it was a few months in, not 1 year for sure. And everyone, like, it was the start of the pandemic, lockdowns and stuff like that. So I was having a hard time um, figuring out how to put myself out there, how to make myself more visible and stuff like that. So I reached out to a mentor that helped me with personal branding. And this is how now I have a logo, I have a website, I have stuff like that, and like an image on LinkedIn. And that evolved over time. Of course, this year I did the rebranding because I felt that this that didn't represent me anymore, and this is more like something that it's more me. And I think that's also like important to note that even if you had a mentor like 3 years ago that helped you with something, that doesn't mean that you can't update the that or find a new mentor on personal branding. And like people evolve, our professions evolve a lot. So I think it's important to notice when you might need help and go for it. And I think now I have a mentor on marketing, so that's also something that just happened. So I
No,
think like you just look at people you admire and they can become your mentors.
yeah, sounds like networking is a big part of that. You mentioned one of the mentors that you found, or maybe the first mentor that you found was in Women in Tech Cluj, an actual event.
Yes.
Do those events still happen? And can
Yes,
people?
they
Yeah,
do. Yeah, they do. They are still monthly, and the events kind of evolved and uh, evolved in a way that there are a different sponsored by different companies. Different people are joining in the panel discussions or stuff like that. So I think that what Women in Tech Cluj does is very important now, and I really want other people to find their what I found. So like a place to feel safe, to feel seen, to contribute. And that's why I'm also volunteering there. Like that's the main motivation behind it, let's say. And there are other events as well here, at least here in Cluj, probably in other places as well. But like here, there are a ton, and sometimes it's hard to choose where to network and like what people you want to meet now and in what context do you want to put yourself into.
but yeah, that does sound like a almost like a perfect opportunity for anybody interested in finding a mentor to join one of those events and network and socialize and start getting to know people. So it's
Yeah, I think
yeah,
I think it's important. Like for example, if you want to work in tech, then go to events in tech.
yeah,
Or if you want to work in marketing, go to events that are for marketing. And I also think that like if I think you need a bit of courage and approaching people there. And I think like everyone has something to offer. You just need to, see it and be open to it and accept it in a way. And I think like I found my mentors in when I didn't expect it.
yeah.
So that's also something to consider. And like for example, the marketing person that helps me now a bit, like I met her, I think 7 months ago, and we didn't talk for 4 months, and then we messaged each other on LinkedIn. We went for a coffee. It was amazing. She gave me a lot of ideas. I was like, please help me make it happen. So I think that's also something that you should take into consideration. And also, what is important at these events as a mentor is like I had people coming to me after months of meeting them. So I think that the reverse is also possible. And yeah.
No, that's fair enough.
So one of the things I actually want to circle back to, because you mentioned there's a lot of events, and I also know there's a lot of events happening all over the world. for women in tech. And one of the main kind of points to how we got to talking was actually because I know you're presenting in one of these events. Do you want to maybe walk us through, first of all, the event and what you can find there, and also what you're going to be talking about at the event?
Yes, sure. So, as you mentioned, there are a lot of events happening, and because I networked in certain at certain events, let's say, I found out about Women in Agile Europe. And a few months ago, there was a call for speakers. And as I'm super passionate about agility and also about mentorship, I applied with two proposals. One was about the role of the Scrum Master and how it is misunderstood. Like we have certain stuff that are perceived by the public in a certain way, which is not necessarily true. And the second one was about mentoring in general. And the one about agility wasn't accepted, but the one about mentorship was. So on the 14th of November, I'll be speaking in Eindhoven, the Netherlands, about this subject. And I'm super excited about that. And if your followers would like to join me, I have a discount code, which please post in the description. And this is available until the 30 September. And you get 10% off your tickets.
Nice.
Okay.
And I know I said this before, but congratulations
Thank
again.
you.
Yeah.
I think one thing that you keep mentioning, and I keep forgetting to ask, and I want to come back to that. So, one thing is that you present yourself as an agile professional. Now, I think officially now all three of us have different job titles because I'm agile coach, Vlad is scrum master, you're agile professional. Do you maybe want to describe the role of an agile professional as you see it?
Sure. And then maybe you can also describe your roles in your companies, because
Definitely.
I'm sure it will be super different.
It is. It
So,
is.
so why did I set on agile professional is because I think people have different understanding of what a scrum master is and what an agile coach is. So I had a big problem with this because I don't know, people saw me as either a secretary, as either an Excel person, as either a Jira, how do you
Admin.
say, like setter, and I was frustrated, to be honest. And this is why I also had like an educational series or of misunderstandings about the Scrum Master role on LinkedIn a few months back. And that's why I settled to this. And agile professional for me, it means that I can discuss with anyone that wants any agile service. So my door is always open. I want to have a coffee with that person and understand the need behind the request. And then if we decide to work together in the contract, they can call me whatever they want. I personally don't care about the title. I care more about the work I'm doing there. And in different contexts, I was a trainer, or I held different workshops or one-on-ones. In others, I was an in-house scrum master, or what most people know to be a scrum master. In other cases, I was a project manager. So I think it is about being adaptable. So that's why my title is Agile Professional.
No, yeah, I completely agree with the idea. I want, and that's kind of, I wanted to phrase that question differently because you said that the Women in Tech Europe event didn't accept your kind of misunderstanding of the Scrum Master topic, and yeah, I wanted to dig deeper into that because I think I do agree that a lot of the time, if not most of the time, the Scrum Master role is not very well defined, or the way that is defined is not the way that it needs to be applied in reality. So
Mhm.
it's each company is different. So it's, from that perspective, yeah, you said you had different roles, but do you mind going in a little bit more into it? Kind of, I'll explain my perspective, but I'm curious to hear yours, exactly how a scrum master role is misunderstood by people.
Well, first of all, like we have some guidelines in the Scrum guide that most people know about. And actually, Agile is the methodology, Scrum is one of the frameworks.
Yeah.
And this is something most people get confused. So that's why I want to clarify it from the start. And in the Scrum guide, we have some guidelines, of course, about what a Scrum master should be, or what the role and responsibilities are. But as you said, in different companies it's applied differently. And I think that the role of any agile professional, whatever it's called, it's one of fostering an environment in which people can collaborate, can grow, can, it's not top down management. It's more like, let's do something together. What happens in, and I see that in most job descriptions, is that they put a scrum master role ad, but if you read it carefully you see that it's actually a top down manager role. Like, they say something like, um, manage people, or I don't know, it's something that the wording that it just goes off in my brain that this is not agile, this is something else.
A
And
red flag.
yeah, it's a red flag, exactly. And then if they say you need to work with Excel to something something, and yeah, you're like, okay. Then they write something about some admin work, like, I don't know, creating Jira tickets. And in the Scrum guide, we know that the Scrum Master is not responsible for that. I mean, the backlog is the responsibility of the product owner. Of course, Scrum Master can and should support as best as it can, but not with the actual decisions and work. So I think that's also like a problem in the industry we're in, unfortunately, and I see it all over the place. Also, what happens, or what happened to me, was that I wasn't taken seriously, because I was seen kind of as a secretary. So, like, you just put some meetings there, and you put this ticket in Jira, and you move this ticket in Jira from that to that, and that got me very frustrated, to be honest. It's not the work I want to do, and I currently refuse to do that. So I think that these are, again, red flags that happen more often than not, and it's important for people to be very careful. And maybe I can mention here something that happened to me with a mentee request. And um, this is also something that I think is misunderstood, is that this person has a different background, not an IT background, and she saw an agile coach slash scrum master ad job description, and she was like, "Hey, I can do this." And she came to me because she didn't know what it actually entails. And I asked her, "Why do you want to do this?" And she was like, "I read this description and I think I can do it." Okay, but then why did you come to me if you know how to do it, right? And I started explaining these things to her, and she just realized that there's more to the scrum master role than it's seen. And I think that's a very important thing to tell everyone, that it's not only about having some meetings, or putting some meetings, facilitating some meetings, and I don't know, writing some stuff in Confluence or in Jira. It's like actually creating a culture, an environment, a safe environment, and that's hard, and it takes sometimes months.
So I think I want to latch onto that and maybe just come out with some opinions that I have, and I've even mentioned, I think, in the previous episodes. I think this is also cultural thing to some extent. I think we discussed this, Vlad, even before in one of the first episodes, where basically we said that by default, I mean, it makes sense to some extent why the roles have been mutated almost. Most companies in Romania, if you're working in tech, are going to be outsourcing. So they're not working on their own product. And they're basically outsourcing teams, which is teams of developers, QA, testers, and you may have the occasional Scrum Master, but Scrum Master as an accountability, and this is my opinion only. I think Scrum Master should not be a role. I think Scrum Master should be an accountability in the Scrum framework. You may be a Scrum Master, but you're doing Kanban. You may not even do Scrum, but you're just there. So I think Agile Coach should be the actual role. Scrum Master should be the accountability that you take on for a specific team. But I think what's happened in, at least in our country, and I see this quite a lot, where I've got friends that are Scrum Masters slash project manager, because somehow you need to fill in the gap, that because the Scrum Master will not be a full-time job if you cannot do your job properly, or if there's all sorts of limits, if you're working for a client that doesn't really want your input, or maybe just cares about, okay, how much money am I paying, how many hours are you guys doing. So basically you're filling in for that empty slot where the company is not paying another person to be a project manager. So I think it just ended up being there as a need rather than people not trying to understand it. Although I do agree that even everywhere you see for me, a red flag, for example, is a job ad where I read Scrum Master, and then one of the first lines is facilitate all Scrum ceremonies. I mean, to me personally, that's a red flag, because Scrum Master should not facilitate all of the ceremonies. And I don't want to get too deep into that because then we're gonna go down a rabbit hole. But yeah, just my 2 cents to add on to what Karla just said.
Yeah, but that's why I think that they appeared these weird looking roles called I don't know, agile project manager, and there are different roles like in the
Mix
past,
and
and they
match.
just inserted the word agile into it. And I have people that message me and they ask me, "Hey, what is this role?" And I'm like, I have no clue, honestly. And please give me the job description or something so I can, pick up some clues that what this person would do. And more often than not, it's actually a combination of project management tasks with product owner and with scrum master. So
Mhm.
it's a salad. I don't know, it's
Jack of
something
all
weird.
trades. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually saw an agile master role, I think, like a year ago. So it evolves.
Yeah, and it's a bit scary. I mean, we as agile professionals, however we want to call ourselves, uh, we need to know this type of things. Like we must have a clue about it, especially contractors like me. Uh, but they keep evolving so fast that they are not necessarily explained well all the time. That it's just, I don't know, it's weird.
It is. And I actually have a question as we're nearing the end of the episode. Maybe one thing that you want to share your views on is, how do you see the state of Agile moving forward? Like, where do you see Agile going in 5 years, for example?
It depends on the companies. I mean, I think that like in the pandemic, like I had the most work I ever had, to be honest. And everyone was like, "Oh my God, I want to work better, more efficiently. I want to be agile," because like everyone knew the advantages of it, or they thought they knew. And after things started going back to normal, I see a change and I'm not sure about it, to be honest. I mean, I I still see the need for this service, but it evolved. It's like different, and I can't pinpoint yet in what way. It's maybe you guys have more knowledge than me on this, but I see again lots of people wanting to enter IT and trying to be a Scrum Master because that seems to be an easy way in, which happened before the pandemic too. So this still remains, but at the same time, companies seem to want more advanced people. I mean, with more experience, like mid or senior. But at the same time, they are giving them or treating them like juniors. So I think we are in a transition period, and the next few months will tell us, maybe, or I hope, in what direction we are moving.
No, absolutely fair enough. And I completely agree there. It depends on the companies and from company to company. And one thing I personally think is that it'll be more and more diluted. Like there'll be more and more versions of Scrum, more and more versions of Agile, and more because applying one formula to every single company, even when you really really try to, you oftentimes find that it doesn't quite work. So it's you have to adapt. You always end up in that scrum but situation. Scrum but this is at least one exception to the scrum guide, or at least two exceptions. And as much as you fight it, it either comes top down, bottom up. It depends on it comes from different directions, but there's always going to be exceptions to the rigid structure. Or rigid, it's supposed to be very lightweight, but to the structure of scrum there's always going to be hiccups that you need to adapt to.
Yeah, but they are only guidelines, I think. I mean, in
Yeah,
my head at
yeah.
least. And honestly, I had companies that came to me to make an agile transformation type of thing. I don't like the word transformation because it's, in agile we need to continuously adapt, and it's a moving thing actually. It's not that we do it once and it's forever. And they wanted Scrum, and I tried to find out why. Well, because others are doing it.
Hmm.
I was like, let's discuss a bit. So after I analyzed a bit the situation, I actually found that Kanban works better for them. So I suggested that and I explained that. So I think it's very important to be open to the actual needs of the company. And as you said, there's no recipe that will work for every company, and that's okay. And actually something very funny happened to me these days. Like a person was telling me that if I want to use a Gantt chart for something, and then she was like, but you're an agile coach, I don't think you will want to use that. I was like, but why? So I think also the view from people is that agile coaches, scrum masters are only going to use things from the guidelines
Yeah.
or certain things. But I think again this is a misconception, and I actually used the Gantt thing and I did it, and it looks nice, and like I was open to it. And I think more agile professionals are, and probably you too are using something that it's
Done
from
in a guideline,
another.
yeah. I mean, it is a guideline. It doesn't necessarily provide you the full prescription of how to do things, but it was interesting to kind of see two different perspectives from Vlad and Karla where Agile will be going. To be on the just to be on the record, and maybe we'll come back in 1 or 2 years and discuss this. I actually think that it won't dilute at all as Scrum. Like we're looking at something that's been around for 20 years. It will evolve. Everything evolves. I think at some point, like you mentioned, it was easier to get work during the pandemic. I don't have any links to this maybe we'll find something. But I did see somewhere that last year in March, I think there were around 500,000 jobs in tech. And this year in March, there were around 220, so less than half. So I think we're seeing the tech job market kind of stabilize themselves, because I think everyone kind of jumped into the idea of working from home and being able to do it
Yeah.
wherever you are. And I think right now we're witnessing a trend of stabilizing and maybe maturing of this whole agile process, because more and more people I'm actually seeing on LinkedIn are discussing agile the way I like to see it discussed. Like, we're not looking at buzzwords, or we're not looking at the Scrum guide and saying, no, you should do this. It's actually a debate where we discuss what's valuable, and we discuss flow, and we discuss productivity and all that. So I'm more hopeful than you guys apparently about the
Well,
future.
the thing is, I'm not hopeful. It'll. The thing is, I agree with you that it'll evolve, but I think it'll evolve into more than just one thing. As Carla mentioned, this has been my experience in terms of companies want to adapt Scrum because it's the popular thing, not because it's what's needed. So I've been in situations with certain teams in which I kind of had to say, okay, yeah, sure, we're doing Scrum, and then implement Kanban, or implement, just simply train them in XP, or train them in something else, and just kind of call it Scrum and then do what they need, because what they need and what they want are two different things. So, but as these things change, I think it'll be more, I guess, more versions of Scrum, because to others, I've been in situations where people hate safe, but they are in situations where that's the only solution,
Hmm.
as in, or that, not necessarily the only solution, but that's just the best solution for that company to make steps towards agile and agility, not necessarily being fully agile, but it just kind of, even if it's just a transition period, you have to go through safe because of too many dependencies between teams, too many complications, the projects are too convoluted. So I think it won't be just one thing. I think that's the whole thing. It's, people think of Scrum Master meaning that you have to do Scrum. What I think it's that it's going to evolve and dilute into the fact that, into a situation where you're a Scrum Master because that's the popular title that everybody recognizes and
Pretty much, yeah.
uses. But then you're gonna do anything agile related that you need to do in order to get the job done.
Hence my title, Agile
Exactly.
Professional.
Yeah. So
Maybe we'll see more and more.
yeah, if you popularize it and get it to be used more and more, I think they'll help everybody. They'll make things a little bit clearer.
Yeah. All right. Uh, Thank you. So this was a really, really nice session. I missed having these types of conversations, honestly. So we should do this more often. Thank you, Karla, for joining us. Thank you for sharing the wisdom with us. And whatever links you have, please send it to us. And followers or follower, whoever you are, please check the comment section. And yeah, if there's any questions, just post them in the comments.
Yeah.
And
Any other opinions? Anybody that disagrees with any of our opinions, please let us know. We're gonna bring them up. We're gonna bring them up in a debate, discuss with them, discuss in the comments. So this is as much interaction as possible, helps everybody learn and adapt.
all right.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carla.
Bye all.
Bye.
She's